Ada grew up in a small town where she was raised by her mother. However, her mother was not the loving and caring figure that Ada longed for. She was often mistreated by her mother emotionally and sometimes even physically, and Ada couldn't wait to grow up and move out of her mother's house. Years later, as Ada was hanging out in one of the luxurious clubs in town, she met a man named John. They clicked instantly, and John asked her out on their first date. Ada was so vulnerable because she had missed out on love when growing up, that when she started hanging out with John, she felt loved and respected like never before. And before she knew it, Ada found out that she was pregnant. She was overjoyed, and on their next meeting with John, she broke the news to him, and John was ecstatic, and he immediately asked Ada to marry him. They quickly planned their dream wedding, but on the day of their wedding, something unexpected happened. Ada got to the altar before John. She stood at the altar waiting for John. She started to panic because his phone was not going through. Hours later, Ada received a phone call informing her that John had been involved in a terrible car accident. She quickly ran out of the church in tears and rushed to the hospital to be by John's side. Ada was devastated when she arrived at the hospital and found out that John had slipped into a coma. She spent countless hours by his bedside, her heart heavy with worry and uncertainty. She didn't know what to do as days turned into weeks, and John showed no sign of waking up. Her pregnancy started to show, and people began to spread rumors about her, claiming that she was sleeping around while John was in coma. Little did they know that Ada was already pregnant with John's child before their wedding day. When the rumors got to her in-laws-to-be, they became agitated and they refused to believe Ada's explanation and accused her to be lying about being pregnant with John's child. And because Ada was living in John's house, her in-laws-to-be threw her out of John's house, claiming she had no right to be there since she was not legally married to their son. Amidst the hurtful accusations, Ada was left homeless and with no one to defend her, and with the torture she had gone through in her mother's house, she vowed not to go back to that house. She slept in an abandoned building, and the next day she walked around scouting for a job, and she was lucky enough to land a job as a waitress in a local restaurant. Determined to survive for the sake of her unborn child, Ada worked so hard, and soon she was able to afford a small house in the ghetto. And few months later, she gave birth to a baby boy. Despite the hardships, Ada persevered. She was determined to create a better life for herself and her baby. That she worked so hard and saved enough money to open her own restaurant. Many years passed, and Ada had given up hope of ever reuniting with John. However, fate had other plans for them. During an arranged partnership meeting, Ada came face to face with John. She broke down in tears as she realized that he was alive and well. John explained that he had suffered memory loss after the accident, and he had recently regained his memories. Ada recounted the trials and tribulations she had endured in his absence. John was filled with guilt and remorse as he listened to Ada describe the betrayal and deceit of his own parents, who had callously turned their backs on her in her time of need. Filled with regret, John sought Ada's forgiveness and vowed to make amends for the pain he had caused her in his absence. Together, Ada and John made a solemn pact to leave behind the toxic influences of their past and start afresh. And in a private ceremony, they exchanged vows and committed to a life of love, trust, and unity. And years later, they were blessed with another child, and they lived happily ever after. The end. If you have enjoyed this story this far, please do not leave without giving it a like, subscribe, and share. And please consider leaving a comment on the comment section telling me whether you enjoyed the story and telling me whatever city or country you're watching me from for me to give you a shout out on the next episode of Wonder Tales by Julian.